dozens of MPs say they can't accept the deal as it currently stands. Amongst them is the Mid-Norfolk MP George Freeman, and I'm pleased to say he joins me now on the line. Mr. Freeman, very good morning to you. Tell me, why could you not back the Prime Minister yesterday?
Well, I don't know whether you've read the deal, and I hope you haven't had to. It's my job too. But having read it and all the legal advice and all the opinions on it and nearly 1,000 emails from constituents, much more in sorrow than in anger, I just conclude in the end it's not a deal that can work. Firstly, it gives the European Union control over our ultimate destiny, which no nation can give another bloc like that control. Secondly, it lays the foundation for a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Basically, if we dare to do anything different in terms of rules in Europe, that border emerges and begins to unwind the United Kingdom, and you could see Scotland being next. And thirdly, it cannot get through Parliament. It's already been proven to be completely unsupportable in the House. And for all of those reasons, I think the quicker the Prime Minister realises that and goes to Plan B.
Now, I fear that we may have lost George Freeman. George, I'm not entirely sure if you can still hear me.
I can hear you, Nick. Yep.
You're back. Sorry, you're back. Forgive me. Your line went quiet. Sorry, we just got to the end of your answer there. But can I ask you, is there anything the Prime Minister can get that you believe that is realistic from the European Union to change the deal, which would make you change your mind? What are you looking for?
Well, for me, the backstop is the real problem, as for so many MPs. For your listeners, this is the bit of the withdrawal agreement that says, in the event that we can't agree a future relationship, we will remain in a situation where Northern Ireland is in the European Union, Britain is in a customs alignment, but the border appears between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And if we can't agree, then the EU can hold us in that situation. And that is the really problematic legal bit. The answer to your question is, I fear no. I mean, I think if the Prime Minister was looking at a defeat of 5 or 6 votes in the House of Commons, then maybe the European Union and she can agree some reassurance on the wording of that backstop. And I hope and wish her well as she goes off today. But I fear that they're going to cross their arms, because I think what they really want is for us to end up in the position of a second referendum. They are looking over the Prime Minister's heads at the country, and they think Britain is losing the will for this. So I fear the answer to your question is no. And the real problem in Parliament at the moment is that the Labour Party are against this, the SNP are against it, the DUP are against it. The Brexiteers, the people who wanted Brexit, say this deal completely fails their tests. And the real problem is there is no mandate. After the general election, the Prime Minister lost her majority and her mandate. Her manifesto did not win. And it was interesting yesterday in the House. There is no party with a clear view on this, and there is no obvious leader. You know, many have said this is a Churchill moment.
Are you calling then for the Prime Minister to step aside?
No, I'm just making the observation that is the problem in the House, and it may well be, it may well be that because the Prime Minister is losing her authority with every day because of this mess, if there is somebody else who could sort this out, then I think, people would say, well, come on, but who is it? I can't see anybody on the Labour side or on the Conservative side. I can't see anybody in the House who actually has a plan or a mandate for sorting this out.
So
and
there's 2 ways out of this then, George. One way out of it is to... there's 3 ways out of this, actually. One way out of it is to cancel the Brexit project and to go against the will of the British people, and Britain stays inside the European Union. That's, of course, fraught with difficulties about, democracy and upholding the will of the British people in that referendum.
I'm just going to say, although I voted Remain, I am 100% committed to respecting that referendum result and trying to find a way to leave the political union without damaging our economy. And I think if we were to tell the British people they were wrong, we'd unleash a massive constitutional crisis, and we shouldn't do it.
Okay, so the second way out of it, in these three scenarios I'm going to place to you, is no deal.
Yeah, and I think the problem with no deal is no deal. We should have prepared for no deal 2 years ago as the sort of nuclear deterrent that would have made sure we got a decent deal. Unfortunately, the cabinet was so busy squabbling and resigning that wasn't done, and now it's too late to prepare for a proper no deal. And I fear, and all the business opinion I speak to is, if you went to a no deal, businesses that have got supply chains into Europe, aerospace, automotive, pharmaceuticals, we would have a real problem on our hands. I mean, a real problem.
Okay, and the third way is what I would call a working Brexit, which is where basically you form a government of national unity to come together and to thrash out a deal around a table which doesn't really satisfy anybody, but it's a working Brexit, and that's then put to the European Union because they know it'll get through, because it should have broad enough support from MPs inside the chamber to carry it, though of course it'll have a lot of opposition as well.
Exactly, Nick, and that is my position. I think the truth here is that Parliament is divided. The Prime Minister's job is to form a government, tackle the issue of the day in line with parliamentary opinion. And I'm begging the Prime Minister to drop this idea that Brexit is somehow some conservative vote winner and should be proceeded as if it's a party issue, and reach out across the House. There are Labour MPs with Brexit voting constituencies who do not support Jeremy Corbyn, would support a moderate, sensible Brexit. As you say, not everyone would vote for it, but I think it would get through the House with cross-party support, majority support, and we could move on.
Right.
I fear if she doesn't do that, we're heading either for a second referendum or a general election.
Can I ask you something? And I know probably you're aware. I made this point the day after the referendum. It seemed very clear to me, and it seemed very clear to many other commentators and many other MPs, probably yourself included, that they need. And Norman Lamb made this point as well. There needs to be some kind of consensus to drive this forward. How come it's got to this stage before people are talking about working with each other across party lines to try and break the deadlock? Isn't that a failure of the British political system?
Well, I think it is. You're right. I agreed with you at the time. I wrote a piece in the Times the day after the general election saying the mandate is now in Parliament and it'll require a cross-party solution. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister's instincts are not those instincts. She was absolutely determined to try and make this a party issue. She did it in the general election where we lost 30 MPs and her majority. So it's been obvious to me for 18 months. But there you are. And I think it's beginning to become obvious to people around the Prime Minister that this is an issue of national importance. It requires a national approach. The problem is the Labour MPs who would have voted for a sensible Brexit with us, with every passing day, her authority wanes and their appetite to support us and therefore prop up an administration that they think looks very weak is passing. And that's why I think the Prime Minister did the wrong thing yesterday. I think Parliament should have the vote and we should expose the different views on all sides of the House. In the end, the answer is in Parliament, and I don't think the British people will thank us for a second referendum or a general election. Parliament has to sort this out. I think the people want Parliament to sort this out.
George, thank you. George Freeman there, the Mid-Norfolk MP. Thanks for joining the programme as ever.